I happen to believe a lot of people, like, they try to have like a big bang for their 100th episode. You know, they try to do something big.
Naturally.
But I feel like, no, 100 should be your low point. Like, you should, if you can, make 100 worse than episode 1. So that way, nobody says, man, they really peaked at episode 100.
That's right.
Like, you can say, boy, I feel like at episode 100, like, they got their second win. So I think we just got to make a horrible show today, and we're fine.
I think it's good that you're setting everyone's expectations for the...
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we're striking the high, man.
That's right.
I'm gonna go for a more intimate feeling where we're gonna be more together, and it's not gonna be just a big bang. It's gonna be just condensed, and we're gonna all express our opinions, and then you just take it to like, this is gonna be terrible. Yeah.
Low expectations. There's no disappointment. You guys, yeah. You guys ever see that Mad TV bit about lowered expectations?
Lowered expectations.
That's beautiful, man. That was really nice. This is Linux Unplugged, episode 100 for July 7th, 2015. Welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that's honestly struggling with a bit of food coma from a little bit too much barbecue. My name is Chris, and joining me in studio, well, one of the several gentlemen joining me in studio is Wes. Hey, Wes.
Hey, gang.
Hey there. Welcome, and thanks for joining me in studio and eating my barbecue.
My pleasure.
Last week, I put the call out. I said, for episode 100, I wanted to do a meetup, but we have so much going on. We've just done a bunch of meetups, and we have a couple of coming up. Kind of didn't really fit in the schedule, so why not just have people over to the studio and do a little cookout? We had 6 people RSVP, and we had a pool going. I said 3 would show up. I nailed it. 3 people showed up. Were you the first to make it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. That was good. And so we had, I had the barbecue going. I figured because we're up north a little bit, people usually show up a little late. So I didn't even start the barbecue until like about the time I thought people were maybe supposed to start showing up. So that way there was plenty of time. And then as people trickled in, we had the barbecue ready to go. We've been talking Linux. It's been nice.
Oh, yeah.
Play a little Ronald Jenkins while we ate. And so I thought today, to celebrate episode 100, we would do the only thing proper. The only thing you're supposed to do for your 100th episode is not plan anything.
Clip show.
Yeah, clip show. That would actually be even better. Is just sit back here, play all the clips. We don't do anything. We just play everything. No, actually, that would have been way more clever. Actually, I should have thought of that. No. Today we'll do. Yeah. We'll do it for 200 exactly. Today we'll do a brief retrospect. We'll do a little navel gazing, but we won't go too far. We'll just talk. We got to look back over the 100 weeks that this show's been on the air, and I don't think we've missed a single week. I don't think
so.
And some really interesting stuff has developed. And then we're going to have a review of the new Linux Mint release based on Cinnamon, the 17.2. And then towards the end of the show, a brand new tiny device is running Linux that is x86 based. And you're going to be able to get your hands on it for pretty cheap really soon. So before we dig into all of that, let's bring in that virtual lug. Time appropriate greetings, Mumble Room. Pip, pip. Yeah, thank you guys. Hello. Huge turnout today. Look at that. It's scrolling off the screen there. We got so many people in the Mumble Room. Hey there, guys. I like Popey must like start before I'm done. That's the only way I can figure, because he's always in there first. He nails it. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the show's history, and so that's one of the reasons why Wes here is joining us in the first segment. Is out of the group here, Wes has been probably watching since closest from the beginning. What, you said about a couple years?
Yeah, I think about episode 18.
Okay, not bad. All right, well, so guess what? This is all going to be in your wheelhouse then. So I didn't want to go like way far back, but let's start with more recent history. Some episodes that were just kind of my favorites of Linux Unplugged. These are like if you're new to the show. We'll just point out a couple of things that I thought were interesting, and you guys, you can chip in if you want or not. But starting kind of more recently, episode 70, when we looked at, well, first of all, we talked with the Fedora project about them switching to this ring cycle where they have Fedora Core again, Fedora Workstation, Fedora Server, and all of that was around the Fedora 21 release and the restructuring of their project. And we did a couple of week coverage of that, and we had them come on and discuss it with us and do a roundtable discussion. I thought that was a really interesting way to sort of approach like a big, well-known distro going through a major restructuring. To really help people wrap their heads around it. And so that was in episode 7. I'm thinking in the future, if there was a distro that had a big change like that, it's nice to kind of just really double down on it.
I think that's one of the best things about Unplugged is you can connect developers with the people who are actually using them.
Yeah, they come into the room.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right there.
And sometimes, like, behind the scenes, Rotten Corp's going to attest to this. Are you still in there, Rotten?
Yep.
We've had to have Rotten write up a tutorial, and like he has to work with the guests a lot of times to get them set up with Mumble. because we have them come in and hang out with the rest of the lug. And, you know, a lot of times, like the last time Matt from Fedora was on the project, he actually had to get and build and package Mumble for Fedora 22 because there wasn't a Mumble available for Fedora 22 yet. So sometimes our guests go really above. I know.
It's just peer pressure.
Our guests, they'll go above and beyond to, you know, because they have to go install this extra piece of software, configure it to our Mumble server, but then they get to hang out, and the people in the room can ask questions too. So that's pretty neat. So while we're still navel gazing and we're looking back, let's keep going back to episode 68. That's when we talked to Charlie and his students from Penn Manor School District, where we got to talk about how they gave each student root access to their rigs. That was episode 68, Linux-powered schools. I love the concept of trusting the students with root access, and the way Charlie empowered students to be the IT people and all of that was really neat. And now they're still getting some recognition. They just got written up in a Red Hat magazine just recently. And it's just up the road from Moorhead. Episode 57, going right through these because I hate talking about ourselves. Systemd haters busted. There was a whole swath of Systemd. This is the part I've been rushing towards. Man, did we have some serious Systemd episodes. Another one, another Seminole. Thank you, Wes. Another really important Systemd episode was episode 27, Debian's Systemd decision, where it was announced. Can you believe it was that long ago?
Seems ages ago.
February 11th, 2014. One of the bumpier chapters in Debian's history. It looks to be drawing to a close, at least for now. What was all the drama about? It was the switch to Systemd.
Now it seems so far ago, you know? No problems.
I'm so glad Debian and Ubuntu have switched to Systemd now. Have you noticed how it's all gone quiet?
Yeah, it really has, in a big way, hasn't it? What do you think that means?
I think it means all the haters were making a fuss about nothing because they didn't know what they were talking about, which I think succinctly summarises what we were saying at the time.
Yeah, it means they actually tried it, finally.
Or they don't realise they're using it now because it just works.
Yeah. Wes, have you had any experience with it?
I think that's a little unfair. I think that's characterising everyone who was anti-Systemd as a hater is a little bit unfair, because some of them weren't. Some of them were people who had
it's a generalism.
other options.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm referring to the peanut gallery.
I think a better summary would be that the haters have moved on.
You think?
The rest of us have made do, or enjoyed it.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's it too. The haters they're just not using systems that use Systemd.
Right, there are options out there. Free BSD converts, perhaps.
So as we're talking about Systemd, who's installed Dev1 recently?
Dev1.
I haven't heard anything about that.
No, I haven't either.
And the room goes silent.
Yeah.
I forgot that existed.
Yeah, I haven't, but
I wonder what they did with all your money.
Oh, that's right. They were taking donations. How about that? So yeah, boy, the Systemd stuff was really fascinating. So it's such a range that it covered, and I know there's a certain amount of time where it really got burned out, but now we have a little bit of interesting history in there. Wow. Boy, that is really something. So, Wes, have you had a chance to use it much?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I run Arch at home, so
Yeah.
Systemd is pretty much on all of my systems.
Yeah.
I use a lot of legacy init scripts at work, and having a sane status command, regardless of if the author of the init script bothered to write one, is a godsend.
Yeah, once you use it in a production environment, if in a server environment, it's very nice. There was a lot of places, a lot of moments in Unplugged's history where we talked about Docker. And Docker, following Docker it's been really fascinating. Episode 16, Meet the Dockers, a new version of Docker was released, so we brought on the CTO and founder of Docker to chat about the big features of Docker. And that was really like an interesting moment in Docker history well before the 1.0, well before the partnership with Red Hat and VMware and all the other companies that they now work with, but well before CoreOS and Rocket and all of that. We talked with the CTO and founder of Docker in episode 16. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then, Ron, did you have any?
I'm just saying it kind of sounds like Linux Unplugged is like container hipsters.
We were hip to Docker before everybody else was. Coder Radio has us beat by a few weeks, actually. So Mike found Docker before Docker was even like he found it really early on when they were just desperate to get people to know about it. And then one of the most popular, and of course the older the show is, the more downloads it gets, so this isn't a super fair metric, but episode 15 of Linux Unplugged, Don't Switch to Linux, has been one of the most popular episodes on YouTube and one of the People have written me saying that I have done more damage to Linux with this episode title than in any other. Don't switch to Linux. I have been told is single-handedly hurting Linux adoption because of that title. But
At least you got a legacy.
I guess that's after all this work, that'll be my legacy. If I recall, it was like what episode 15 was about was Linux is amazing, but we're just gonna tell you here's a couple of the elephants in the room when you switch.
You got to be real.
Yeah, and like I was just telling you guys during lunch, our former nanny, who is no longer our nanny, her MacBook died, and so Noah got her Dell laptop. And she liked it. She likes it. Oh, I was already using LibreOffice. She says it was great. Oh, I was already using Firefox. It's great. And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be perfect. So I think you put Ubuntu LTS on there. And she had it for about 2 days. And then she calls me up and she says, so, Chris? Yeah, what's up? I'm having a hard time with something. What is it? I can't. Is there no iTunes for Linux?
Oh,
I'm like, oh no, there's no iTunes, Jenny. I didn't even think to tell her.
Of course not.
I mean, I don't use iTunes. Who uses iTunes? A lot of people use
Linux
iTunes,
user.
but Linux users don't use iTunes. But those are the kinds of things that we covered in the Don't Switch to Linux. It's like there's a lot of good stuff, but there's some gotchas too. And so that I was surprised by the reaction because I felt like if you listen to the episode, it was kind of obvious what we were trying to go for. But boy, did we get a lot of hate for that. And so episode 15, that was like ever since I was like, oh, I don't want to be flame baity in the titles anymore. I'm sorry. But
We've matured since then.
the real funny thing about Linux Unplugged is it started as a show simply to handle the overflow of mail we were getting from the Linux Action Show. I was getting so much email, and this is well before before we had the contact forums really were really good, and we had the subreddit as a really good forum for feedback. So everything was coming into my inbox, and I realized I was spending as much time reading email every week as I would just to prep a show. So then I thought, well, here's an idea. Why don't I just turn all this email reading into show prep, and I'll just sit down and I'll read and respond to emails. Nobody will want to listen to a show like that, but if I'm going to do it anyways, I'll just do it. And so that was like episode 1. It was like, maybe I'll try, here's a concept. Episode 2 and 3, go dock yourself. What was that about? Oh yeah, that was a little KDE hate. I played with it a little, and then I realized pretty early on that nobody wants to listen to a show where some guy's reading email.
Should've been
Nobody.
obvious.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Which show did you introduce the Mumble chat room then?
I think it was this show. I think so.
No, as in
episode.
which episode?
Oh.
That'd be a good thing to find.
Oh, that is a really, really good question. Do you think it wasn't in episode 1?
It was episode 1.
I'm thinking
Was it?
maybe. A chat with our live hangout. Maybe we did a hangout for the first episode. But yeah, we had a panel discussion about our first episode. We talked about the lava bit shutdown and if it was time to start rolling our own email servers. That was our panel discussion on the first episode. It looks like.
So it started out dicey.
Yeah. The lava bit stuff was kind of a mess, wasn't it? I remember that LeVar Levinson and the whole. He was hosting Snowden's emails.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. That was what lava bit was about. And now he's off doing the dark mail initiative, and I think we interviewed him one of our shows. Even might have been Unplugged. That's a great question, though. Yeah, I do read. It's funny. Grader says now I no longer read emails in LUP. I don't read as many. I do read a few, but I don't read as many now because we read more emails in Linux Action Show these days. So it kind of softened up on that.
Well, the Mumble Room brings all the complaints that you could possibly
That's
want.
true. We got live feedback right there, right? And you got a chat room. You got a chat room too. Hey, you know what? Something that just crossed my mind. I got to get your info. Before you go, I got to get everybody who visited today. We're going to give away a special, for you guys that visited, a special Linux Unplugged 100 t-shirt.
Oh boy, I will just remind everyone I was here first.
Yeah, so there you go. So, and we're going to make it available just for like a day or two, or probably like a couple of days. If you would like to pick it up out there in the audience, teespring.com/lup100. It's just a shirt we threw together to celebrate episode 100. We're not going to make a big run of it. We're not going to make a big deal. I don't even think we'll probably update the website. So it's just for you guys if you're a fan of the show. And we're selling it basically at cost, $19. Because once you add shipping and stuff, it's going to be a little bit more than that. And there's also a long sleeve version, which are pretty great. And it's at teespring.com/LUP, LUP100 if you would like it. And for you guys who visited, just give me your deets and I'll forward them on to Ange and she'll order some for you guys because you made the trip. And I'll put a link to that in the chat room too. Again, that's teespring.com/LUP100 if you want to grab it. And I don't know how long we'll run it because I really just kind of want to be something special just for those of you who listen to episode 100 of the Unplugged program. That was something Ange wanted to do too. And we only need 3 more prints to make the run because we're just doing a couple. So, and it'll be running, I guess it's running for 14 days. I guess we'll probably just run the clock out on it. That probably makes the most sense. teespring.com/LUP100. All right, so that'll bring us to the end of the navel gazing. I appreciate you guys letting me do that. I thought it was fun to kind of look back over 100 weeks and see some of the more interesting things that have developed. And, you know, it's funny because on the pre-show we're like, no, we don't want to talk about this again. Oh, we don't want to talk about this. And we were talking about like Firefox and System D. And the reality is we feel like we talk ourselves out too much. Like it's, oh my gosh, we've beat it to death. But when you go back with a little perspective and look at it, it's and I'm just saying this based on, you know, 300 plus episodes of Last too. It is it's an uncanny time capsule. It is like getting in a time machine and going back to that moment, and you realize there was so, like, we look back at this stuff now and we see it in very broad terms. The Debian distribution switched over to System D, and there was some debates and there was infighting. But back then, the nuance is so rich and so detailed that when you actually go back and listen to the back catalog, you're like, wow, I can't believe we were worried about this, or oh man, that was such a big deal, and like it's very fascinating. So, and it's all available.
Retrospect.
What's that?
It's a good retrospect.
Yeah. Yeah, for 200, we should actually clip it all together. That's a good idea, Wes. I like that. Thank you, Wes. That was good thinking. All right, well, so we're going to shift gears and talk about Linux Mint 17.2 and the flavor of cinnamon that you can get with that edition. But first, I want to tell you about our first sponsor, and that is DigitalOcean. In fact, go over to DigitalOcean.com right now, and remember our promo code of absolute power and wisdom. That is DO Unplugged, one word, lowercase, DO Unplugged. That'll give you a $10 credit over at DigitalOcean, and then you can try out their $5 rig 2 months for free. Now, DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up your own cloud server. Now, a cloud server is really a rig up on the DigitalOcean data center that is powered by Linux, running on top of Linux in the KVM virtualizer. And you can choose from CoreOS, FreeBSD, Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, lots of distributions to pick from, one-click application deployments, and you can get started in less than 55 seconds. I can't even believe this. As somebody who used to create virtual machines for a living using like clunky VMware ESXi platform tools and things, where I had to run a Windows box to create a Linux machine those days, to be able to create a machine in 55 seconds blows my freaking mind. And at $5 a month, you're going to get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. A terabyte. Geez, wow. Oh, and here's the other great thing. DigitalOcean has data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. They got a brand new hotness in Germany with 40 gigabit E connections to each hypervisor, their fastest SSDs yet, and that thing is located in great locations. All of its neighbors have fantastic speed, but look at DigitalOcean's interface. In fact, it's worth using our promo code just to play with that. Go over to DigitalOcean.com, use the promo code DO Unplugged, get that $10 credit, also help support this show, and then try out their interface. You know, it's super intuitive. It supports web standards, which is really nice, which means it's going to work on your tablet or your desktop, which is great if you're on the go. They also have a fantastic API that allows you to replicate the functionality. Really, really well done. And there's so many great community apps built around that API. For like me, I just take advantage of those apps. And for those of you out there that use Unity for your desktop, there are applets that snap right into the Ubuntu desktop to manage your droplet. I don't actually know how well they work on other desktops, but I did notice they're also available in the AUR. So GNOME users and whatnot, I think you could actually install them as well. There's also tons of command line applications, Android, iOS management tools, things to snap it into Puppet, whatever you need to do. There's probably somebody's already written some code for it, or you can take advantage of that API. Just remember that promo code. That's what supports the show and keeps us going for another 100 episodes. DO Unplugged. You apply that, you get a $10 credit. No credit card required. DO Unplugged. Try out their $5 rig 2 months for free. If you're in our chat room right now, the functionality of the JBot, powered by a DigitalOcean droplet. My chat room, powered by a DigitalOcean droplet using Quasar Core. My own cloud, my BitTorrent sync, my Minecraft servers, the back-end systems that we use for transferring files between on-location and production in the studio. All of it powered by DigitalOcean, our Jitsi server that we bounce off of a DigitalOcean droplet. I'm telling you, it can be your backend infrastructure for testing or for production. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code DO Unplugged, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Unplugged program. You guys are fantastic. All right, well, now sitting down to join me at the mic is Romeo. Hey, Romeo, welcome to Linux Unplugged, man.
Hey, Chris.
So thank you, first of all, for making the trip out from Portland, right?
Yeah.
Good man. And also, not only that, you also volunteered to be our Linux Mint 17.2 Cinnamon user. And so I saw you have it installed here on a Lenovo laptop. Is it a Lenovo?
No. Oh, it is Lenovo.
Okay. See, I thought it was a Lenovo. And what do you think of it? Where do you want to start? How was the installation experience out of box, Wi-Fi, hardware? How's all that worked for you?
Well, I mean, installation is pretty standard nowadays.
Yeah,
I mean, we nailed that a while ago.
Yeah.
It's nothing to write home about. It's a Linux installation from a USB. It's what it is. Wi-Fi worked out of the box, which it didn't in 17.1 when I used this laptop.
It's a Broadcom in that?
Yeah, Broadcom chip. Which was exciting. I was pretty hyped about that. And it carried over my Wi-Fi settings from the install.
I love that.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and more distros are doing that, but and man, does it stand out now when a distribution doesn't do that.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't notice a whole lot of changes when I was just using it regularly. Theming is really easy.
Do they still support like the automatic downloading of themes online inside the like theme control panel?
No, at least not that I could find.
Okay.
It seems that they've removed that functionality. I don't really know why. You have to download them manually and plug them into your .themes, which isn't difficult, but my grandma wouldn't do it.
Right. Having it built in there is very nice, sort of KDE-esque too.
Yeah. I looked at the changelog and they say they fix a screensaver not actually being a screensaver.
Nice.
They put some new repos on, but it's only 14.04. I mean...
Yeah, that's right. Right. Did you feel that when you're using it? Does it feel old?
It feels sluggish. Even though they say that they've improved and sped up and optimized Cinnamon a lot, I didn't feel it. For me, it felt slower than when I used 17.1. Maybe it's drivers being weird. Maybe it's something else, but I didn't feel the speed improvements they were talking about. And admittedly, this is on a very low-end laptop. It's a ThinkPad X131E, which isn't the best, but I mean, it should be able to run Cinnamon.
Yeah, and it's ran it before.
Yeah,
and so it has an Intel graphics, so you've played Race the Sun on it, so it can do 3D acceleration. So it should be enough
I believe it's actually AMD.
Oh, okay, but it's enough to actually have 3D compositing.
Yeah.
So the Cinnamon should have everything it needs to be snappy.
It is, but and the Cinnamon menu still hasn't opened when I hit the.
Is that hit it again? Did it even register?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is a bit laggy.
Yeah. So I thought that was worth mentioning. What was neat was all of my little function keys, like my play and pause and brightness, and those all worked out of the box, which they didn't last time. So it seems kind of like they're just making it more stable, making it more of a distro that'll just work on everything.
I noticed they're refining a few things that seemed kind of appealing. Like, I don't know if you had a chance to play with this, but I guess they have like a new inhibit feature for notifications now.
I didn't play with that, but I did see that they did that, and I thought that it was cool.
Yeah, that's nice. It's just, you know what, I don't want any notifications for a while. No boxes popping up for a little bit. Just turn this crap off. That's a great idea.
And not just that, but it also disables your screensaver and screen blanking in total, which on my desktop I just wrote a script for that. But, it's cool that they've included
Caffeine
that
is another desktop application you can get that'll do that.
Yeah.
And it's nice, like when you're watching a movie or a live show, something like that. When I looked at like you were saying, what I saw was like so one of the things they've listed is improved system settings, like a better layout of the system settings, and when you go through there now, does it feel like it's one nice cohesive place to configure the system?
I went into the system settings and I didn't notice anything, which I think is
probably
what they were going for. Yeah,
it's probably a good sign. Yeah, because it felt a little hodgepodge in the past, and looking at these screenshots, it seems pretty good. Now, Wimpy, I think on the pre-show you were mentioning you might have had some questions regarding the Cinnamon release of MATE, of Mint.
Well, you've just covered some of it there. I mean, I find listening to podcasts that do distro reviews really useful because I have 2 long commutes a day, and I can listen to other people reviewing distributions, and I can get hints and ideas about how to improve the one I make. So all of this I find fascinating.
I am intrigued by your experience with it being based on 1404. So I'm assuming userland applications all feel very current and modern, right? It's the latest Firefox or
I mean all that stuff is it's fine.
It's all taken care of.
It's usable, but I don't know. I don't know why they went with 1404.
Can you do me a favor? What's the version of the kernel it's using there? Do you give it a uname or something for me? I'm just kind of curious to see which. They probably have it listed on the specs page. But now here's the nice thing about this. So so it sounds like your biggest takeaway is the performance is not quite as good as you're hoping, especially since they kind of made that a cornerstone aspect of the release. But the flip side is this is a long-term supported edition. So this is something you could give friends or family, and they would have years of patches coming from this thing. So that's something to consider. Wimpy, you wanted to jump in.
Well, you were saying about why is it based on 1404, and this was something I discussed with Clem way back when this was first.
Right. Oh yeah, will you remind me?
Put out as an idea. Well, it really comes down to the fact that with each new version of Ubuntu, the Minty team being outside of the Ubuntu, family, if you like, they had to keep re-engineering things and fixing things and moving with this shifting base system. And one of the other criticisms was that you couldn't upgrade between Mint releases, or you could sometimes, and sometimes it didn't work so well. So the decision was to base on an LTS and then iterate on top of a stable, largely unchanging base system, so they could actually concentrate on developing their own tools and applications without having the constant churn beneath them with the operating system changing. So that was the rationale, and part of that was fueled by when is System D going to land, what's happening with Wayland and Mia, and what that might mean for distributions such as Mint and Elementary, and how they would have to adapt.
It buys them a couple years to let that kind of thing shake out.
Yeah, just let those things shake out. Yeah.
Now, also, I've been reading online that a lot of people are upgrading from 17.1 to 17.2, which is not something normally done in a Mint release. But I guess because they're both based on 14.04, there's actually a way to do this now.
Yeah, because you're not. You're not doing.
Yeah,
you're not doing a distribution release upgrade. You're effectively upgrading packages on top of a base OS,
which is nice,
so
for Mint users. That's always because that's always been a mismatch. Mint's great for people that aren't very comfortable, but every time you want to go to the next version, you have to completely reload. Yeah,
They're actually going to do that another time for the next release, which is 17.3, and the next one, who knows, because that'll be 18 and. It's going to be LTS to LTS, so maybe they'll have an upgrade, maybe not.
Yeah. Now, did you see the kernel version there?
Yes, I've got 3.16.
3.16 is not bad, okay. All right. So it's not 3.13, that's all I care about.
It's also actually got a kernel versioning app manager thing,
right.
So you can actually you can update and choose which kernel you want.
Or avoid it altogether, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well.
Interesting.
There's actually a lot of things that they're doing that are they're LTS based, but they are actually updating packages and updating different security software and stuff outside of just the LTS point releases. They're doing more than just that. There's a few applications that I've experienced where they've actually updated in the past couple months or so that were like a year old in the Ubuntu versions. So they're not doing it for everything, but they are doing it a lot more than any other distro based on LTS.
Do you remember which applications those were?
No, I don't. I remember some of the applications that are not in the repo at all that they added some proprietary stuff, like they added Sublime, stuff like that.
I like that. Sublime's great. I last week, what I was trying to sort of haphazardly say, and I'll just very plain stately say this time, is I'm still a little confused why I wouldn't go with Ubuntu MATE or Ubuntu LTS itself over Mint if I'm really going out on a ledge and say I'm going to pull a Noah and I'm going to ship somebody a laptop halfway across the country and I'm never even probably going to see them. I don't know if I would do anything but an official Ubuntu flavor for that person. Because it just feels like you're deviating, the further you deviate from that official status, like the more room there is for something you don't know about or something you don't have oversight over or something just weird to break. I don't know. Maybe it seems like it doesn't seem like a main issue because I've moved people to Mint and had success with it and I have never had a problem, but I'm just trying to think where, if I'm trying to pick between the two, what the core advantage over, say, Mint Cinnamon Edition is, say, over Ubuntu MATE or Ubuntu 14.04 LTS. What do you think?
I feel like Mint Cinnamon tries to be intentionally a lot like Windows. The start menu is very similar to Windows. The two-finger scrolling isn't a thing. They use the Windows Edge scrolling.
Right.
The
general
feel.
Usage of it feels a little bit like Windows, but almost like Not in a bad way though. Like 'cause sometimes I'll say that to put something down, like, oh, it feels like I'm using Windows 7, and maybe you might have somebody might describe an old version of KDE like that. But with Cinnamon, it's like it's got a start menu, but it's now a better start menu than what Windows has, right? Like it's like they've refined it in a way where they took some concepts that if you're familiar with Windows, you'll see they're here in Cinnamon, and they'll be somewhat reminiscent, but they're not like a one-to-one copy of the concept. Do you agree?
Yeah. It's easy for the Windows people to get into, which is what everyone's been saying about Mint since as long as I can remember.
That really is a main advantage to it, isn't it? And one of the big advantages to it is if you're switching a Windows user, it's going to be kind of comfortable for Cinnamon. How's the stability been? Any crashing or anything like that?
I haven't had any crashing other than the general sluggishness.
Yeah. Corky wants to throw his hat in the ring. Go ahead, Corky.
I'd have to say Cinnamon is definitely the most important thing about Linux Mint. I've 4 switches I've used Cinnamon for because I find it great for switching people, and Linux Mint is the only way you can go if you want proper Cinnamon implementation.
And you like GTK apps too, which is nice. If you still like the GTK apps, but you want something a little more traditional, and GNOME 3 isn't your thing, or it's going to be way too different if you're switching, and you don't want to go to KDE, yeah, I like that. Okay, so 17.2, and if you have any experiences with it out there and want to share it with us, linuxactionshow.reddit.com, find the feedback thread for episode 100 and let us know. I'd specifically like to hear your experiences with the performance aspect. How has that been? Anybody in the Mumble Room want to chime in? Have anybody tried 17.2 that has opinions before we jump around? Nope. Going once?
I looked at 17.2 for accessibility, but that's just me, though.
And okay, I'd love to hear about that.
So in 2.6, they started work on accessibility for Cinnamon.
Yeah.
So that's what the 17.2 has, Cinnamon version 2.6 and above. But it's still not there yet. It works in terms of just kind of navigating, getting around. Nemo's not sort of accessible, but there are some things that don't work as well. Some of the keyboard functionality, when you want to assign keyboards, like keyboard shortcuts and things, those don't work with Orca. The panel is sort of accessible, but there needs to be some work done. But the start is there, so hopefully the ball will keep rolling.
How does it compare to, say, Unity or GNOME or KDE?
So KDE is not accessible as of right now. Apparently there's some move for that to happen. Unity is not. It's sort of accessible, but the functionality is not really there for Orca users. But in terms of like GNOME or MATE, GNOME and MATE are the most accessible out of the box for Orca users. Cool.
That is really good to hear that perspective, because that's obviously something that's very hard for us to test. So I really do appreciate you mentioning that. And also, Grader in the chat room points out that if you're not a Systemd fan, Mint 17.2 is a bastion of non-System D-ness for you, which also probably explains why it's taking a little while to boot up.
It might have to do with the hard drive encryption.
You have it encrypted?
Easy. Yeah, I've got the hard drive encrypted
that might
and
take
the
a bit
home
of
folder
yeah.
encrypted.
That definitely could take a bit of a hit. Yeah, for sure.
For boot up time, but I don't think that would affect like after I've booted up.
It might, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it might still. Just even though it has the key, it still might. I don't know. That's a good question. I'd be curious to see what it'd be like with or with it off. So how was that, setting that up? Pretty easy?
Yeah, during the install process, it was just
tick a box, enter your master password.
Yeah.
Cool. And were you able to set one master password for all of them? Or was it different passwords for like your home and a different password for your root? Or
I set a different password for my home and a different password for the.
Cool. That's really neat. Well, very nice. All right. Well, thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming in from Portland to give us that review in studio too. That was really awesome. And jump back in and let us know how it goes. Are you going to keep it installed, or are you switching to something else?
I'm going back to Arch.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for trying it for a little bit. Yeah, I know how you feel, too. All right. Well, then I'll take a moment, and I'll thank our next sponsor right here on the Linux Unplugged program. Of course, that's our friends over at Ting. Go to linux.ting.com, linux.ting.com to get our special $25 discount off your first Ting device, or $25 in service credit if you have a Ting-compatible device. And you just might, because Ting has a GSM network and a CDMA network. Now, here's what I love about Ting. You're only paying for what you use. This is phenomenal. If you got like a device, like a little tiny computer device that maybe is doing some monitoring or some sort of sensors, you could put a GSM SIM card in that thing and give it internet access for $6 a month. Why? Ting's only pay for what you use with a flat $6 for the line. Then just take your messages, your minutes, your megabytes. They add that all up. That's what you pay in. And that's really simple. And they have a dashboard to help you keep it all straight, and it's really a good system. And because I'm pretty savvy, like with the Wi-Fi, or I'll use anything. I'll use Hangouts. I'll use Skype. I'll use SIP now with Noah. Man, I don't even. We're like 7 days into the month. I've probably got like a handful of minutes used total. It's so slick. And so if you're savvy like that, it's really useful. And here's the best part. You can get a whole team of people on there, right? And for $6 a line, that's not going to cost you anything. And it's just your usage. And then when they get stuck, you can just have them call the Ting customer service. It's no-hold customer service. You just call and get to speak to a human at 1-855-TING-FTW. That's really nice if you don't want to get stuck having to help people, because they've got really good service. They've also got great online support and a fantastic dashboard. And one of the great things about Ting, and this has saved my butt a few times, is you can just turn on hotspot and tethering. So if you need data, like, maybe, I don't know, Comcast goes out on you. Happens. You just turn on the hotspot and tethering, and you get Ting's tri-band LTE. I'm getting like 20 megabits in the studio. It's really nice. Plus, they got a whole range of devices, from basic devices like feature phones all the way up to the Nexus 6, the best stuff. And one of the things I really like about Ting is they always are iterating on the features around the Ting platform. And so they have a Ting app. I've told you a little bit about it before. You can find more about it at ting.com/app. And of course, Kyra is here. She's got a little discussion for us too. I mean, I could sit here and tell you about it, but what I love about the Ting app is everything good you need to manage your Ting account. And why have me tell you about it when Kyra could tell you all about it? Go, Kyra. Take it, Kyra.
Is the Ting app of the week. It's also meta. I'm Kyra, and this is the Ting app of the week.
I love you.
At Ting, we pride ourselves on giving you the tools to take control of your cell phone bill. Practically anything you do in your Ting account dashboard on a computer can be done inside the Ting mobile app. The usage panel shows how many minutes, messages, and megabytes your account and all your devices have used. Tap a number to check out recent activity on that device. Tap again for detailed event info. Easily enable or disable device settings, like international calling, internet access, and picture messaging. You can view your current bill and detailed billing history, and set alerts and caps to keep things under control. You can also give us a call, access our help site, or submit a help request right through the app. You can also stay up to date on the latest Ting news by hitting the blog. You could even watch this episode of the App of the Week featuring the Ting app on the blog within the Ting app. Just be careful not to create a glitch in the matrix. The Ting app is available on Android and iOS devices and is free. You'll find links to the Ting app below, or just search Ting in the Google Play or the App Store. Thanks for watching.
Linux.ting.com. Linux.ting.com. Go there, won't you, to support this show, get yourself a great discount, and check out all of the great stuff Ting has to offer. Linux.ting.com. And a big, 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 big thank you to Ting for sponsoring this here. Boy, they've been here almost since the very first. I don't know if they're here for the first episode. Gosh, because I just kind of launched it. I got a spur of the moment. Like, I'm doing a show. But they were pretty much right after I decided I'm sticking to the show. I was like, hey, Kyra, you want to? And Kyra's all in. Kyra over at Ting was all in, and you can get all into linux.ting.com. Support this show and only pay for what you use. That's right. Go to linux.ting.com. All right, so now we are sort of winding down towards the end of episode 100. We had Romeo join us just a moment ago. Oh, hold on. Don't peek. Don't peek. Of course, Wes joined us a minute ago, and now Nick, right?
That's right.
Nick is sitting down to join us. Nick, welcome to Linux Unplugged.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Nick, how was the drive up, first of all? I should start with that. Where you come from?
I'm actually coming from Bremerton, so it's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah, I know. It feels like it's pretty far north when you're actually making the trip, huh? Like, when you look at it first, like, that's not that bad. But yeah, then you have to make the trip out there. So, Nick, I remember we were talking before we started. You're just started kind of looking and moving into the technology field. And so you're not in, your day job isn't necessarily working with technology. So why the hell are you using Linux?
Well, I've always kind of been interested. Ever since high school, I've been playing with Ubuntu, really.
Oh, okay.
And then I kind of got into a little deeper into it.
Just stuck with it?
Yeah, just kind of stuck with it.
That's
actually,
cool.
About 6 months ago, I completely got rid of Windows. And
so how is it going to school, taking technology courses? Do they accommodate the fact that you're a Linux user? Or when they give you courseware and instructions, do they just assume you're on a Mac or you're on Windows? Is it?
Yeah, pretty much just have to figure everything out myself.
Yeah.
It's almost all Windows and a little bit of Mac here and there.
Do you end up having to run a VM? Like, is there just no way around it sometimes?
There was one class I had to run a VM for, just for Microsoft Office. I had to do some stuff with a newer version of PowerPoint, but
Oh,
that was
man.
it. That was the
Yeah,
only one.
and now maybe Office Online would help a little bit, I suppose. I feel like, because the reason why I was kind of thinking about this is I was looking at this. We haven't talked about it yet. Well, we kind of talked about it when it first came out, but there's this Ubuntu-powered Intel Compute Stick for $110. It's an x86 computer. It's going to ship with a 64-bit version of Ubuntu 14.04 LTS, 1.3 gigahertz quad-core x86, 1 gigabyte of RAM, and 8 gigabytes of storage, and it just plugs into the HDMI port. $110 for this, and this is going to run any x86 compatible application. I don't. I'm like, for like schools and libraries and low budget, like, you know, need a lot of computers that can do basic computing. This seems like such a no-brainer, because you could get a $100 flat screen, you know, a computer monitor, plug this into the HDMI port, and you've got a full computer setup for $250 or something.
Yeah, that'd be like perfect for that whole situation there. I'm actually really surprised that more schools and stuff aren't using open source software in Linux.
Well, Mumble Room, what am I missing about these compute sticks? Because I think there's some skepticism in the Mumble Room about them, right? Isn't there, I think before we started there was...
Well, one thing is they're very easily stealable if they're just shoved in the back of a monitor.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but boy, laptops and tablets are also pretty easily stealable, but they still have them in schools and whatnot. But yeah.
The Ubuntu ones also only have, I believe it was either a single gig or 2 gigs of RAM, where the Windows one has double that.
Wimpy, is that what you mean by it being a little more gimped?
Yeah, so way back when, Popey was reading a more optimistic brand of news than me and was saying that, you know, the Windows and Ubuntu version were going to be the same, but sadly we find ourselves in the usual position where the Ubuntu version, yes, it's a bit cheaper, which is great, but it's got 1 gig of RAM and 8 gig of storage versus the 2 gig of RAM and 32 gigs of storage on the Windows version. So that's disappointing, but I guess this is, you know, Microsoft's deep pockets subsidizing the hardware.
Is it that, or is it Intel wanted to ship it for a cheaper price, but Microsoft couldn't agree on that because of the amount of RAM that Windows takes?
Well, in the netbook era, Microsoft did their damnedest, didn't they, to make sure that, you know, these devices shipped in such a fashion that they weren't ideal for
and they're bending over
use.
backwards for the Raspberry Pi B or Raspberry 2 or whatever, Raspberry Pi 2, whatever it is. So
yeah. Yeah, I don't know that they're bending over backwards. I think that's lip service they're paying to the Raspberry Pi 2. If you've actually looked at what's involved in getting Windows 10 running on a Raspberry Pi 2, it's well,
it's a joke.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
and it's command line only too, right?
Well, it's not so much that, it's the, you know, you must have Windows 10 preview installed in order to flash the device, and you must, so there's and you must have a Microsoft Connect account, you must have a Microsoft online account, and there's also, and you must fill out every survey on the Microsoft Connect site before you get access to the Raspberry Pi 2 preview image download. So there's a lot of stuff you have to do, and a lot of information you have to give away to get access to this.
So I do think those sticks are useful for the low end stuff, like, so even it ships with Ubuntu, but I can see a lot of people wanting to wipe that off and put something like a media center stuff and use a Bluetooth remote or even an infrared remote or something, or a Bluetooth keyboard, and use it as a media playback device. It's like a Chromecast, but completely open. You know, so, you know, the things that annoy me about a Chromecast is I can't easily play local media without hacking the thing. I can't tell it to use DNS servers other than Google. So if I wanted to bypass like region locks and stuff, that's hard. Whereas with this device, it's a bit bigger, it takes a bit more power, and it's you know, it's a little bit uglier than a Chromecast, and it's a do-it-yourself thing. But I would expect very soon there will be people making x86
images essentially for
that kind of device that's got Kodi and all the other.
And wasn't Firefox working on a casting stick? Yeah. Well,
right.
Maybe instead of building the hardware, they could just release the software and people could flash it themselves. But Wimpy, you warn us, maybe we are not going to want to replace the Ubuntu OS on the stick. What do you mean?
Not just yet. So the wireless device in these Intel compute sticks isn't supported in the mainline kernel just yet.
Geez.
So if you're comfortable with patching your own kernel with the the current out of tree drivers, then that's fine. So this comes with all the hard work having been done for you. But if you want to run Kodi on it or Arch or something else, then for the time being at least, you're going to need to roll your own kernel to support it. So maybe in a couple of months that won't be an issue, but just be fair warned that changing distros is not going to be trivial at the moment.
Okay, but this is way easier than using an ARM device like the mythical Mozilla thing that still hasn't arrived and we get no updates.
Right, being x86, you mean kind of the matchstick. That's what it was, the matchstick. Thank you, chat room. Thank you.
Yeah, I backed that. I'm still waiting as well.
I think I did too. But yes, I did back it.
Whilst I agree with Popey,
that is not from Mozilla themselves. Just a heads up.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a project built on top of their platform.
Thank you for the clarification.
But whilst I agree with Popey that x86 devices are far more flexible, versatile, just be fair warned that if you get one of these, just be patient before you start wanting to experiment with other distributions.
Now we might maybe we'll see something better from Lenovo, right there, Warhead. We might be seeing something from them that might be easier for us to use.
Yeah, they're basically redoing the same thing, branding it their way. However, with my connections there, we might be able to get Linux running on it fast.
Nice. That would be cool. That would be good. And theirs is going to run for $130, it says. 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, HDMI compatible. I'm not seeing anything on the... Where's the... Probably just the same specs, huh? Just a little
It's probably right down to the letter. And then it's got the Lenovo branding and the West inside it, so...
Yeah, it's got the Atom processor. It's got 32 gigabytes of storage, so it has a little bit more storage. This one will be shipping with Windows 8. Oh boy, what a winner that is going to be. Ooh, who would want that?
I've seen some online that are built around the Core M, like in the MacBook. And I can't remember the price point for those, but I've seen them out there.
Wimpy, before we wrap up, you have a little bit of news to share with us. You are wheeling and dealing these days, my friend. Not to stand still. You have another hardware partnership to talk about. Tell me about it.
We do. So we have our second hardware partnership with an organisation called Libre Trend, who are based in Portugal, and they make the Libre box. Which is really about supporting free software. So it supports Linux without any drivers that require blobs or anything like that. So it's quite an interesting initiative because the guy behind it has hand-picked all of the components, has designed his own motherboard, has found a fabricator in China that actually makes his motherboard for him.
Wow.
But then he actually manufactures the devices in Portugal, including, the alloy casing is all bespoke build. So this isn't an ODM device that he's putting a badge on. The whole thing is entirely bespoke and hand designed. And so if you're a BSD user, this is also a good choice because all of the hardware works. And one of his aspirations was to actually get this all working with Core Boot. But that turns out it's quite a long and expensive process to remove a proprietary BIOS. So at the moment, the Libre box is using a traditional BIOS, although it doesn't have UEFI. And in time, he's working on actually replacing that with Core Boot. So the last vestiges of, in his mind, of the freedom hating can be removed. And he has a couple of revisions of this device in the works as well. So in the not too distant future, there'll be another device announced, and he's also working on something for 2016, which I can't say anything about, but I'm super excited about that.
Sounds like it's going to be a fruitful partnership down the road, long term.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's nice that these organisations have approached us and said, we'd like to ship your operating system.
Yeah.
That's really satisfying, and it's great for me because it means this particular device, although they're based in Portugal, they ship worldwide, so anyone can order these. And up until September the 13th, there's free global shipping as well. So if you order one now, there won't be any costs. And there was some criticism when the device was first released about the cost, so he's listened to that. He watched what was going on Reddit until our Linux was went private, and he's actually reduced the price of the device within a few days, having watched people's feedback. So they're good eggs, and they're doing the right stuff.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting one of these. I'm gonna use one of these as a little Cody box in the front room.
Perfect. You know, that's sort of this. I think that's probably a perfect ending point right there, because that's also been one of my favorite things over the 100 episodes is watching you guys work on that project. Watch Ubuntu MATE just sort of really, I don't know how else to describe it, blow up, blossom, explode into from going from something you guys started to really a well-known full flavor of Ubuntu now with a couple of hardware partnerships and contributing to open source projects on a routine basis. I mean, it's a pretty impressive journey. I think we've I don't even remember where in about the show's history we started talking about it, but it's been going on for a while now, and that's sprinkled throughout the history of the show too now. So thank you, Wimpy, for chatting and sharing with us as you've gone along on that. That's really cool.
Oh well, you're welcome. It's all Popey's fault. We can blame Popey.
Blame Popey.
and it started a year ago. Give or take a few days.
Heck of a year.
That's when I went round to Popey's house, and he got me started on this crazy idea.
All right, so that's been a heck of a year then. That went fast. Wow.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, and it's kind of surprising because I made this for my mum, really, my mum, my dad, and my wife, and my father-in-law. And now I've got hundreds of friends and acquaintances I've made online that are using it, so it's quite satisfying.
So if people want to find out more about that hardware, go to ubuntu-mate.org, and I will link it in the show notes as well, because that is a pretty cool deal. Congratulations. So that's two now. That's two now, right? Two different hardware partnerships. Probably more coming, I bet.
Yeah. And the original partners, Entroware.
Yeah. Still around.
Their Apollo device is the same as the Librem 13.
Right.
So I've got one of those. So
how do you like it?
If you want to know what the Librem... yeah, it's great, although I'm working on kernel drivers for the trackpad at the moment because
hold on.
That's not properly supported.
I think that'll be a good post-show topic. Stay right there. Let's talk about that. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you've been here for 100 episodes, thank you for listening to all 100 episodes. Join us next week. We'll be here. Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get our time. Go to linuxactionshow.reddit.com to leave feedback, and we'll see you right back here next week. There's show. Thanks, you guys. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
So, Wimpy, tell me, how is this Librem laptop?
Yeah, in the main, it's very nice. So, Entroware have been selling the Apollo for about 3 months now, and part of the agreement I've got with them, they sent me some hardware. So they've sent me 2 of the laptops to evaluate, and the Apollo, which is the Librem 13, I've now learned, that's for me to keep, and that's now my daily machine that I use. So it's a full metal aluminium case. My traditional machines are rather clunky and old, ThinkPads with traditional quality ThinkPad keyboards, which I never thought I would be able to give up. And the Apollo's got a chiclet keyboard, which I thought I was going to hate. And I've actually realised that it's a really good keyboard. I really like the keyboard.
Ooh.
And I'm very happy with that. So
I think Noah's going to get one.
I'm telling you now.
Okay, that's the good stuff.
Right. Okay, so yeah, everything that I'm telling you directly translates to the Librem 13, because in my contact with Entroware and then consequently the ODM and some of the component manufacturers, I've learned that what I have is the Librem 13.
Okay.
It's the same device. The one difference being is that Entroware ship theirs with a traditional BIOS, whereas Librem are hoping to use Core Boot. But in terms of the specs, and the case and all of the other features, it's the same. But the issue is this: it's got a really nice large trackpad, but the kernel currently detects that as a PS2 mouse. So consequently, there's no gesture recognition.
Oh no!
And what I've also learned, and brace yourself, because you've backed the Librem 15, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
The Librem 15 has the same trackpad in it, made by BYD. So I've contacted the component manufacturer BYD to try and get the specs, and I got a general PDF that isn't all that much help. There's a couple of people I've found on various mailing lists that have had a go at reverse engineering the packet protocol for the USB device to try and enable the full gesture support, and that's quite hard going. I've made some progress, but I don't know enough about kernel development, and in particular the input stack, so I'm kind of struggling with that. But what this means is, if you actually look at the product updates for the Librem 15, in one of those they actually acknowledge that the trackpad only works as a PS2 device, which means you've got basic trackpad movement, move your finger around and the cursor follows you, and you've got edge scrolling that works, but there's no two-finger scrolling. Or gestures, which means that when you need to right click and drag something, that's a bit awkward. So maybe somebody needs to hold the candle to Purism's toes and just find out what their plan is regarding the trackpad support is.
I had a similar mouse on my Asus laptop, and when I installed the new version of Fedora 22, it actually worked right out of the box. So whatever they're doing,
they have the new they have a new lib input library, don't they? Have some new? Doesn't Fedora 22 have a new?
It does, yeah.
And it does work better for
menus. Everything. In fact, I think Fedora are actually going to make that mandatory in the next release. So if projects aren't using lib input, they're going to struggle because their libraries are going away.